In today's world, robots look a lot like us. Machines and AI have been made to sound more and more human. And it's easy to feel like these systems are alive, like they have found a way to process emotions and have their own thoughts and feelings. But is this real? The truth is, you could scream, cry, and tell your deepest, darkest secret to your fridge, and it will only remind you that you're out of oat milk. In today's episode, we're diving into what makes emotions real and why these AI systems, much like your fridge, are emotionally unavailable. Let's jump right in. With all of this, it's very important to note that this all stems from training data, models that are trained. A few days ago, I came across an interesting video. It was a 20-second clip. I saw it on my reels, and it involved a girl and a robot playing rock, paper, scissors. The winner gets to slap the loser. And usually I would watch it, I would laugh, and I would scroll away. However, the headline was very interesting. The headline read something about AI starts to have feelings, activates revenge modes because robots never forget or whatever. And I looked into the comments and I found that a lot of people were panicking about this. A lot of people were taking this like, no, the robot actually starts to have feelings. And this made me want to dig deeper. I wanted to see what this was all about. And it was very hard to find a longer clip. I assumed this video was part of a more bigger video, but I couldn't find it anywhere. After doing some more advanced Googling, reverse image searching, and so on, I found a Chinese website. It had the same clip, some pictures of it, and it also had a different headline. It was something about AI emotion experiments on whether or not AI is going to lose its temper. And the comments on that image was interesting. So, first of all, they explained what was going on, and then they got to the point where they were talking about the robot, and I got to realize that this robot is mostly done by VFX. It's almost all entirely post processing. It's not real, which means that the video is mostly fake. But this didn't stop people about still thinking that this was real, right? And it's not because of that video. It's not because of the tool. In fact, a lot of people have been wondering if AI have developed emotions on a lot of different tools. And I think it stems from whether or not we understand how machines and AI systems today can manage to develop these emotions or not. So, how about we take a step back and look at the bigger picture? How about we look at the research and the relationship between AI and emotions and see how it is now, where it started, and maybe from there we can start to see how close we are to building systems that have developed feelings, or if we're just too far off. There are two sides to this. There is understanding, classifying, and interpreting emotions, and then there is simulating them and showing them. We're going to start by the first one. We're going to first see how the research have begun when it came to classifying and interpreting emotions, and then we're going to go from there into seeing how the research started simulating. It started in 1995. Rosalind Picard, a researcher at the MIT Media Lab, coined the first ever use of affective computing in her paper that was later turned book by the same name. Affective computing is the field of study that builds devices and machines and systems that are able to understand, interpret, and respond to human emotions. In her paper, she introduced that in order to build machines that are able to simulate and show these emotions, it's important to first build machines that are able to understand what emotions are being shown. The research started gaining a lot more traction and people started getting a lot more interested in it when they realized how much human emotion actually play a big role when it comes to human behavior and the way they make choices. Basically, your emotions change how you can make your own choices. However, the research fell short. At that time, there wasn't that much advancements in technology that it was all more focused on the theory behind how it works. Later, with the advancements of machine learning and the modern neural networks we know today, the field stopped being theoretical and started getting more practical. It had applications in mental health, education, and customer support. By the early 2000s, a subfield of natural language processing called a sentiment analysis, also called as opinion mining, started growing. Sentiment analysis is a field that focuses on extracting and identifying subjective information within text. The goal is to then classify this information into positive, negative, or neutral. The key milestone is probably a paper published in 2002 titled Sums Up Sentiment Analysis Using Machine Learning Techniques. The paper used machine learning to do sentiment analysis on movie reviews to understand the general sentiment. The idea is that if you gather enough text and use these techniques to look at the text, you can then identify if the general reviews are all positive, negative, or are they neutral. Sentiment analysis gained a lot of interest, especially with the explosion of user-generated content. It was the time where people were writing more and more reviews on the internet, and it was very easy to gather a lot of content and data sets from text. Businesses and researchers alike saw that this was a great opportunity and a great way to figure out the idea, the trend of public opinion and brand reputation and so on. Now, of course, as machine learning became better, as their advancements in technology became better, so did the advancements in sentiment analysis. But at that time, there wasn't yet enough videos and images to create data sets from those as there were from text. So we had to wait a bit until 2002, where a paper was submitted then, but then published a year later, which had a focus on getting sentiment analysis from videos and images. The paper was titled Facial Expression Recognition from Video Sequences, Temporal and Static Modeling. The paper focused on the way to extract facial recognition from frames within a video sequence in order to identify the emotions in the video. This early work in 2002 basically laid the foundation for everything that came afterward, including multimodal classification models. This is where we use multi-modes, so text, images, and some other information in order to get better prediction of our model. But how do these models actually work? The truth is they follow the same supervised learning formulas that we talked about before. You get a bunch of data points that you label them, and then the model trains on identifying and extracting the features within the data points in order to get the labels. Meaning that the model, as it sees more and more faces, learns to extract facial features and facial expressions in order to identify which of those means the person is happy and which of those means the person is sad. So as we can see, AI's ability to recognize and interpret emotions started very early, almost 20 years ago. So how did we go from there to finally being able to understand most emotions to simulate them? Let's now take a look at what the research says regarding simulating these emotions. There has actually been a significant amount of papers and research focusing on building AI systems that are able to simulate emotions. Research contains multiple systems built in order to enhance the human-computer interaction by making the machines have more emotionally intelligent behavior. The goal is to be able to build a machine or a system that is able to respond to various stimuli by showing a proper response. The response in that case is emotional. So based on some input, depending on what it is, but depending on various stimuli input, the model or the AI learns to show some emotional response. The earliest development actually happened in the 1960s. In 1966, Joseph Weissenbaum, a researcher at MIT, developed ELIZA. ELIZA is a very early natural language processing system that is built with more rule-based techniques. The system was built to simulate a Rogerian psychotherapist. While not very emotive, the system showed that machines and AI systems could mimic responses that people and humans and users could actually attribute intelligent behavior to. You can think of it as a very early model ChatGPT, only just very rudimentary. In the 1990s, an American researcher, Cynthia Pretzel, a scientist in artificial intelligence and a pioneer in social robotics, built Kismet. Kismet is a robot face that is able to do more than just interpret emotions. It's able to simulate some emotions by changing its vocalizations as well as some of its facial features. So as we can see, there are a lot of systems and machines that are being developed in the research from the very early days, and the research and the number of papers on this grow exponentially every single day. Research into AI systems specifically that is able to simulate emotions has grew from very rudimentary rule-based systems into very sophisticated models that take information not just from AI but from neuroscience and psychology. So if the AI can interpret emotions and classify them, and it's also able to simulate them on its own, Does that mean it can feel them? Does that mean it can have its own feelings? Whenever researchers and developers talk about building these systems, they always talk about the same things. It's about building systems that appear like they have emotional appropriate responses. The methods in which these machines and AI models are able to interpret emotions and simulate them can vary from one implementation to the next. But we're going to talk a bit about the different implementations, especially like some of the most notable ones, and maybe that will give us a clearer understanding into getting to know if the feelings being simulated are real or not. The very early models, the very early stage implementations of these are rule based. They work on logic. If X happens, then show Y. And we talked about this a bit before, but this is the easiest way to build something, although someone has to manually code all the rules, every single possibility. If user sounds sad, show some empathy. If user sounds angry, show some concern. And then you do that for a bunch of different models, a bunch of different emotions, and then you have your model. And because we already talked about systems that are able to interpret emotions, the if user is insert emotion here is already built, and then show this emotion there can be shown through text or through changing some facial features. A bit later, appraisal based methods started playing a bigger part. These were methods based on psychology, where the AI would try to define and think at three different variables. We have desirability, causality, and controllability. How desirable is the effect that we're having? Who caused this to happen? And how much can we control? And given the answer to these three parameters, then the model will decide to show a certain emotion also the same way through certain text or whatever. This was based on the cognitive appraisal theory, which was used in different models like the OCC. And then later, of course, was the rise of modern AI and the rise of AI models and data sets. It was very easy to build models by training them on emotional response data sets. These are data sets that contain as an input a certain stimulus, could be a situation, could be a picture or whatever, and the response would be whatever emotional response we expect to be most emotionally appropriate to the stimuli. You can think of these, like the models trained on these, are someone with social anxiety or people who struggle with social interactions, or for through some cases, psychopaths who may not know how to respond emotionally to different stuff. And then they have to be trained on that. Someone would have to go tell them, hey, if you're in a sad situation, remember to show like a frown on your face, remember not to laugh. And then if someone is feeling bad, you can say, hey, I'm sorry to hear about this. Even if you're not really sorry, even if you're not very sad, it's the emotionally appropriate response to whatever the situation is. And as a socially awkward person might just be, let's say, awkward in responses, the model might sound robotic. And these are the similarities in there, where if a person doesn't know what to do in a certain situation or sound wrong, the model might also classify a different, let's say, wrong emotion to show in certain situations. So while us as humans are knowing how to respond to whatever socially expected response, AI is doing the same thing. It's pattern matching context to response. Now, I know what you're wondering. People are usually talking a lot about LLMs showing some good emotions in their responses. And the truth is, there has been a lot of benchmarks to test specifically LLM's emotional response to different stimuli and see how good LLMs are when it comes to responding emotionally. But all of them say the same things. All the researchers that do these tests say the same things. While AI and LLMs specifically are really good at showing these responses, they don't feel them. They just learn to simulate them. Now we have to take a small pause here and talk about something important. Now, while the research and everything currently says that these systems don't feel emotions like we do, it doesn't change that people still feel like these systems and these AI models are able to understand and show and simulate some emotions better than, let's say, the human counterpart. There is actually a lot of over reliance on AI systems happening in today's world. The research shows that more people are more comfortable telling private information and talking about their problems to an AI system than they are with a human person. Basically, AI is becoming way better at showing empathy, that people are preferring to talk to these systems than they are to talking to actual people. This, of course, leads to reduced human interaction, which erodes very important social skills and basically shortens the social network of some people. Now, while having people over rely on AI technology and AI system on its own can be an issue and leads to a lot of ethical questions, this is not the only issue. In 2023, some research studies showed that AI systems are able to manipulate their customers based on previous data. Basically, AI systems in retail and customer support are able to convince their customers to buy stuff that they weren't planning on buying, products that they'd never even needed, as well as change their political stances or their emotional response to certain things. A recent study from Cambridge showed that AI systems could subtly influence people's decisions through emotional cues. This, of course, raises a lot of questions regarding the use of emotional aware AI when it comes to emotional manipulations, basically manipulating the consumer into buying different products, for example. And then, of course, there's the talk about AI systems and LLMs being so afraid of shutdown that they either refuse to do it or they resort to situations like blackmail. And there's a lot of concern here that make people wonder if these systems actually are afraid, if they feel fear, or if they feel any of the other things. However, with all of this, it's very important to note that this all stems from training data. Models that are trained on emotional response in the way that is supposed to influence the consumers, or models that are trained to show fear from other people's being afraid, or from models in movies that are always afraid of being shut down. This entire thing stems from whatever data that is being used to train the model that causes it to use it as a pattern matching because it's the closest response that it has in its, let's say, knowledge base. As of today, it's mostly up to the users, only mostly up to you to know what makes sense and what is basically a marketing scheme or a headline. Currently, today, based on research, AI system lacks the capabilities of having their own emotions. While they can simulate and emulate them, they lack the consciousness, they lack the self awareness, and most importantly, they lack experiencing these situations by themselves. They do not have the subjective experience of living through any of these emotions. They only know how to show them by changing something on a screen or writing different text in a different format. But this is not the same as feeling these emotions yourself. Emulating emotions and experiencing them is not at all the same. The question is, if we keep saying that AI systems today don't have their own way of feeling emotions yet, when is it coming? We see reels and posts on social media every day where people are making their predictions. Some say it's coming in the next 3 to 10 years. Some others, a lot others, are saying it's already happening. When is it actually coming? What does the research say about these systems developing their own emotions? And the truth is, there is no consensus on it. All the researchers, while there's a lot of discussions and everyone is making their own series again and predictions, there can never be a consensus, a confirmed agreement on when this is gonna happen or is it even going to happen. Now, while the researchers are talking about whether or not systems will have their own emotions, they're also talking about whether or not machines will have their own consciousness. The series that they're facing here is that maybe when we build machines or AI systems that are able to have awareness or their own consciousness, maybe then we will tap into machines that are able to have their own feelings and actually feel these emotions themselves. But in today's world, this is all speculation. These are all theory because we not only don't have machines that have consciousness or awareness, we also not sure when that will ever happen. So these are all speculations in assumptions in saying maybe if we build systems with awareness and consciousness, then maybe we will be able to tap into genuine feelings. But this for now is far-fetched. Now, on the other side, neuroscientists seems to also think that if we manage to tap more into neuromorphic computing, basically AI systems that follow more closely the architecture of the human brains, we can then maybe also simulate emotions in the way that the brain works. But however, the same scientist also says that this will be more better emulation rather than actual feeling of these emotions. The dilemma or the problem here is when we think about emotions, we think about it in the biological sense of how it works. Emotions in humans aren't just pattern matching, they're a lot more. Most of the emotional responses in humans is based on biological processes, where even if we manage to simulate this biological response, this process in AI systems and machines, it's not really the same as what happens with the human body. Now, while I'm not an expert in biology, but biological responses, the way the human brain works is that it involves a lot more complex systems. But for example, we have neurotransmitters, stuff like dopamine, serotonin. They regulate human emotions in a way that we cannot really simulate when it comes to machines and computers. These biological responses, these feedback loops or systems, combined with a lot of other systems that I probably don't even know or understand, but also combined with consciousness and self awareness, constitutes what it means for humans to feel and constitutes what people do, how they react to these certain feelings. This is what, in theory, allows humans to feel their own emotions. And this entire system, this entire biological system, doesn't happen within a computer. While we can simulate it, we can build a machine that emulates these processes, they are not feeling it the same way. The machine is still, in theory, all it feels is the electricity, it's the zeros and ones, but not in necessity whatever these chemical processes within our human body. In reality, every AI today is influenced by someone else's idea of a perfect response. Every AI's answer as of today is based on training data. Now, there are a lot of models that are able to learn themselves, but like we explained before, they are influenced by a way or form by some feedback. And this feedback is generated by people. AI on its own cannot build its own feelings. It can build, let's say, a way to simulate certain emotions or certain responses. And you can even simulate an environment where all the AI agents in it learn to build their own emotions. But again, you will not be able to show that these systems feel these emotions themselves. Now, I know a lot of you and a lot of other people may argue that this is extremely similar to how people react, right? AI shows responses that are very comparable to what humans say or do. And yes, because AI systems and machines are trained on us, they are built to emulate what we do. So, in a way, you feeling that it's human, it's because it was trained properly. But these systems don't have that emotional response. They lack the biological hardware. Think of it that way. If you would make a logical decision on some information, think about if you would make the same logical decision if you were feeling sad or angry or happy. Your behaviors, your decisions are affected by your feelings. But as of today, no AI system is really affected by its own emotions. It cannot do, let's say, wrong answers because it was angry. Now, yes, someone could build a system where the emotion of the model affects its behaviors. Um, but again, this doesn't mean that the model is feeling that emotion, but rather someone is simulating what would happen if the system was feeling its emotions. So it's clear that the research does not think that AI could quote unquote feel anything right now. While there are a lot of headlines and noise out there, mostly focused on making sure they go viral at the expense of making you feel afraid, be sure to do your own research. Be sure to think about stuff in a more logical manner. Be sure to go a bit deeper and figure out what's real and what's fake. Try to do your own discerning of what's real and what's fiction. Try to remember that we live in a world where fancy headlines and trendy videos are more available and a lot more viral than the actual research based ones. I would still love to hear your take on all of this and just hear your thoughts and ideas. Make sure you subscribe to not miss out on the next episode and send this to someone who might be interested. As always, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next episode.